First came the suitcase, then silence. Nearly a decade without a trace, without looking back. And now, the return. Not with triumph, not with fanfare, but with the icy calm of someone who calculated everything in advance. He will appear at the exact moment the past feels safe in its impunity, when those who once wiped their feet on him finally sense a faint, almost imperceptible tremor beneath them. He doesn't seek revenge. He creates a new reality, cold, precise, measured to the last gesture. Every step is planned, every word sharpened. He doesn't raise his voice. He simply arrives, and no one leaves the room the same. They didn't expect him. They didn't recognize him at first. And when they did, it was already too late. An empire built on lies and arrogance never realized its final walls had begun to crack long ago. But he knew. He waited. And now, the time has come. Greetings, my dear friend. I am very happy that you are watching my video, and I will be even happier if you subscribe to my channel. This will make me even happier. Let's get started. Ronan Keaton swirled the bourbon in his glass, the amber liquid catching the dying rays of sunlight streaming through the soaring windows of his penthouse. 10 years had passed since he'd vanished from Westridge in a storm, a single duffel bag on his shoulder and just $150 to his name. Today, he stood at the helm of Keaton Innovations, a technological powerhouse worth billions. A quiet knock pulled him from his thoughts. Morgan, his assistant, waited at the doorway. "Mr. Keaton, here are the Mercier Holdings files you requested." The name alone made his jaw tighten. "Thanks, Morgan. That's all." He opened the folder. His gaze sharpened as he combed through the reports. Mercier Holdings was unraveling. Their finances had collapsed into disarray. Once the crown jewel of Westridge, the Mercier empire was now a cautionary tale written in red ink. Ronan's mind drifted to the past. 5 years into his marriage with Bianca Mercier, he thought he'd found his place. A loyal wife, in-laws who welcomed him after he'd lost his parents, and a blossoming financial future. From stocking shelves in the Mercier department store to managing one of its most profitable locations, while attending night classes for his business degree, he had earned every rung of the ladder. Leonard and Delilah Mercier had played the role of supportive in-laws. Leonard, in particular, loved to sing Ronan's praises at public events, touting him as the epitome of a self-made man. But Ronan had never been one of them. What the Merciers didn't know was that he'd been discreetly setting aside money in a separate investment portfolio, his springboard to a business of his own. Bianca had known. It was meant to be their shared exit plan, a fresh start, free of the Mercier legacy. But that winter, something in Bianca began to shift. She was gone more often, allegedly doing volunteer work. Her wardrobe grew increasingly expensive. She wore a perfume he didn't recognize. Ronan dismissed the red flags, burying himself in classes and extra shifts. That last semester nearly broke him. They hardly spoke. On graduation night, Leonard threw a lavish party at the Westridge Country Club. Ronan would never forget how Bianca had arrived late, her smile mechanical, her eyes constantly drifting toward Adrian Whitaker, Leonard's newly minted business partner. "You seem distracted tonight," Delilah had whispered at his side. "Don't forget what you have. A man like Adrian doesn't wait around. He acts." He'd brushed off the remark at the time, assuming it was another reminder of his outsider status. 2 days later, a bank alert shattered everything. A transfer of 17,500 yen, his entire savings, vanished. Moved by Bianca, he had driven straight to the Mercier estate, his diploma still sitting untouched in the car. In the sunroom he found them, Leonard, Delilah, and Bianca, sipping their tea as if nothing had changed. "Where's the money, Bianca?" His voice was calm, but inside he was coming apart. Bianca's hand trembled as she placed her cup on the saucer. "I don't know what you mean." "The money. The savings. The $17,500 you took yesterday. Leonard rose deliberately. Let's sit down, Ronan. We're not animals. Not animals? Ronan laughed bitterly. Is it civil now to steal from your husband? Delilah sighed with irritation. It wasn't theft. That money belonged to this family. He stared at her. Come again? Leonard's tone turned cold. I've put up with your selfishness long enough. That money could have supported our operations. It was money my daughter rightfully claimed after standing by you through school. And let's be honest, Ronan, you only earned any of it because of us. Bianca finally met his eyes. I'm leaving, Ronan. Adrian and we've been together for a while now. Her confession knocked the breath from his lungs. And the money? Just a farewell gift? She's entitled to it, Delilah cut in coolly. Especially after everything you put her through. What I put her through? Ronan's voice rose. I was pulling 60-hour weeks at your stores while grinding through night school. I earned that money. And who gave you that opportunity? Leonard countered. Who handed you that manager title without experience? Who introduced you to our network of advisors? You were nothing before, Bianca. That word, nothing, beat inside his skull like a war drum. He turned to Bianca, searching her face for a trace of the woman he once loved. She only removed her wedding ring and set it on the glass table. I'm sorry, Ronan, but Adrian can give me the life I've always dreamed of. We're announcing our engagement next month. Engagement? The word struck like a thunderclap. How long has this been going on? Long enough to know it's real, she murmured, avoiding his eyes. Leonard stepped forward, placing a firm hand on Ronan's shoulder. The divorce paperwork is ready. Sign it. Accept the settlement. It's more than fair, all things considered. Move on. You never really belonged here anyway. Ronan jerked free from Leonard's grip, his movements tight with restrained anger. What about the savings account, Bianca? Is that gone too? Her silence said everything. Figures, he muttered, the frost in his tone echoing the hollow ache blooming in his chest. You're not completely out of luck, Leonard said, oozing false concern. You've still got that fancy degree. And the store gig, for the moment. Management's reevaluating. Big shifts coming. There was no mistaking the message. Ronan had been surgically removed from their lives. His job, his marriage, his financial security, all gutted in one calculated move. We've arranged a stay for you at the Hampton Inn, Delilah added, her voice clipped and courteous as if offering a gift. Just until you figure things out. Your belongings are already there. At the hotel, he found his life stuffed into cheap, generic luggage, bags he didn't recognize. The leather anniversary set he and Bianca had splurged on, gone. His custom suits were nowhere to be found. The luxury cufflinks and timepieces, wedding gifts from Leonard, vanished without a trace. At the front desk, the clerk handed him a key card and a plain envelope. Inside, $150 in rumpled bills and a note in Leonard's distinct handwriting. Severance. A laugh tore out of him, jagged and unhinged, cracking into quiet sobs. 5 years of marriage, countless nights spent helping build someone else's dream, a pristine business degree, and this was his exit package. A few bills and a forced goodbye. He lay in bed that night, sleepless, as the faces of Bianca, Leonard, Delilah, and Adrian hovered like ghosts on the ceiling above him. That was when the truth hit him. He had been blind, believing that hard work and loyalty were enough to earn a place in their world. But to them, he'd only ever been a placeholder, someone to keep Bianca occupied and keep their empire running smooth. As sunlight crept through the hotel blinds, something inside Ronan shifted. He wouldn't beg. He wouldn't explode. He wouldn't even let them see him fall. No. He'd disappear, rebuild from the ground up, and return. Not as a casualty, but as a force powerful enough to dismantle everything they held dear. Before they could freeze his personal account, too, He withdrew the remaining $32 that gave him a $182 total. Enough for a one-way bus ticket to Pittsburgh, a city far enough to start clean, yet full of potential for someone smart and driven. The first days in Pittsburgh were brutal. He crashed in a hostel, spent his days buried in the public library, applying for jobs and studying economic trends, and worked nights under the table as a dishwasher in a bustling diner downtown. Dirty work, paid in worn-out 20s. It was thankless, repetitive, and exactly what he needed. The silence gave him room to plan. 2 weeks in, during a short break, he was flipping through a business magazine when a woman slid into the booth across from him. "You know anything about supply chain optimization?" she asked, glancing at the article in his hands. "I majored in it," he replied. She tilted her head. "A business grad scrubbing pans? That's a story I'd like to hear." "Not one I'm telling today," Ronan answered, voice flat. "I doubt that," she said, handing him a card. "I run a boutique logistics firm. One of my clients is bleeding money due to bad inventory and route planning. Fix it and I'll cut you in. 10% of my fee." He looked at the card, then at her. "You don't even know me. Why hand me that?" "I don't," she admitted. "But I know that look in your eyes. That kind of hunger doesn't lie." She rose to leave. "What have you got to lose?" The next morning, Ronan showed up at her office, an airy warehouse repurposed into a startup hub filled with glowing monitors and cluttered desks. She introduced him to her 4-person team and laid it out. A manufacturer with 18 locations spread across 3 states, hemorrhaging cash from operational waste. "We've got McKinsey coming next month," she said. "If we can't beat them to a solution, we lose the contract." Ronan didn't leave that building for 3 days. He crunched numbers, mapped routes, built out models, tested every scenario he could simulate. When he finally presented his strategy, the forecasted savings surpassed $4 million a year. Phoebe stared at him, stunned. "Where the hell did you come from?" she asked, breathless. "Someplace I don't plan on going back to," he replied. She pitched his solution to the client. They were so impressed, they canceled McKinsey and doubled Phoebe's rate on the spot. True to her word, she handed Ronan a check. 10%, 120 grand. "Work with me," she said. "Not as an employee, as a partner." He paused. "Why me? You still don't really know who I am." "Brilliance doesn't need a resume," she said. "I know it when I see it." For the first time since Westridge, Ronan felt something real. Validation. Over the next 3 years, Santiago Logistics grew into Santiago Keaton Strategic Partners. What started as a lean operation evolved into a powerhouse consultancy. Regional businesses gave way to Fortune 500 clients desperate to fix their supply chains. Ronan's innovative logistics designs, combined with Phoebe's surgical business instincts, made them an unstoppable force in the industry. Despite his rapidly growing wealth, Ronan kept his lifestyle deliberately unremarkable. An unassuming apartment, a reliable car, no extravagance. He reinvested nearly every cent into the business or into a shadow portfolio he managed alone. The betrayal still echoed in his mind. It sharpened him, made him cautious. He didn't place blind faith in anyone, not even Phoebe. And that secret portfolio? It existed under a separate corporate identity. One Phoebe didn't even know existed. By the close of the 3rd year, the investment account had soared past $5 million, fueled by daring yet calculated moves in rising tech ventures. During a comprehensive assessment with Webb Electronics, a prominent name in consumer tech, Ronan identified a fundamental flaw in their product development cycle. Instead of suggesting incremental fixes, he proposed a radical overhaul. "This goes way beyond our original mandate," Phoebe warned, as they prepared for a presentation to Webb's executive board. Ronan responded with quiet confidence. "Trust me. This is easily worth 10 times our contract." At first, Lincoln Webb, the CEO, was skeptical. Ronan was young, and his firm was new to the inner circle of trusted advisors, but Lincoln agreed to test the proposed methodology. Within 6 months, Webb Electronics rolled out a reinvented product line that captured 23% market share in its debut quarter. Lincoln called Ronan personally. "Whatever we're paying, it's not enough. Name your price, we want you in-house." But Ronan had a bigger vision. Rather than accept a salaried role, he proposed a joint venture, one that would push the boundaries of smart home technology. Webb would handle the hardware, and Santiago Keaton would lay the infrastructure. "You're thinking too narrowly," Ronan told Lincoln. "Webb Electronics can lead the smart home revolution, but you need a partner who understands ecosystems, not just engineering." That conversation gave birth to Webb Home Systems. Ronan secured a 30% equity position, and Santiago Keaton was awarded 15%. In under 2 years, their smart home solution had penetrated over 200,000 households, with a subscription model that soon outperformed traditional hardware sales. Phoebe, however, was less than thrilled. She confronted Ronan head-on. "You used our firm's platform and resources to spin up a parallel business. That's not what a partnership looks like." "I built something that lifts us all," Ronan replied. "Our valuation has tripled thanks to this venture." "It's not just about the money," she said. "It's about trust. If you're always looking for your next exit, then we're not truly building together." Her words hit deeper than she realized. Ronan had, in fact, been quietly preparing for his own path, carefully constructing a future that would stand independent of Santiago Keaton. "You're right," he admitted, catching her off guard. "Let me make this right." He rebalanced the ownership structure, reallocating 10% of his Webb Home Systems equity back to Santiago Keaton and retaining 20% for himself. It was enough to repair the relationship, for now. But Phoebe remained guarded, aware that Ronan's ambitions were far from satisfied. By year 5, Webb Home had become his launchpad. Ronan had assembled a broad, forward-looking portfolio with stakes in AI, smart infrastructure, and advanced materials. Though his net worth now exceeded $100 million, few people were aware. He operated through a web of anonymous entities, maintaining discretion while his empire grew behind the scenes. When he eventually exited Santiago Keaton, it was on amicable terms, selling his stake to Phoebe at a fair price and ensuring a seamless transition. She understood his desire to chart his own course, though she could never fully trust the fire that fueled him. "I hope whatever you're chasing brings you peace," she said over dinner on his final night with the firm. Ronan gave a faint smile. Peace isn't the objective. Soon after, he launched Keaton Innovations. Headquartered in a sharp, glass-fronted building that loomed over downtown Pittsburgh. Unlike Webb Home, which catered to households, Keaton Innovations aimed at the corporate world, offering enterprise-grade AI systems that redefined operational efficiency. Ronan hand-selected his executive team from unconventional backgrounds, industry misfits, visionaries whose ideas had been overlooked or dismissed. Zara Malhotra, now head of AI, had built revenue-generating algorithms at several firms, but had never broken through the leadership ceiling. Dominic Cruz, his chief strategist, had been ousted from a VC firm for advocating too bold concepts, many of which later turned enormous profits for others. "I don't care about your resume," Ronan told every new hire. "I care about what you can build, and how hungry you are to prove everyone wrong." That ethos fostered deep loyalty and a culture driven by invention and grit. Keaton Innovations became known for identifying gaps others missed. Their flagship product, KI Core, was a cutting-edge AI platform capable of forecasting supply chain disruptions, market shifts, and consumer behavior patterns with astonishing accuracy. Corporations paid handsomely for its insights, and the revenue flowed in by the billions. Ronan stayed behind the curtain. He didn't attend summits. He skipped interviews. His name never appeared in advertising. The spotlight belonged to his executive team, freeing him to focus on vision and expansion. But there was another motive for his quiet approach. Privately, Ronan had begun tracking the corporate activities of the Mercier family through indirect and subtle means. Leonard Mercier had diversified the family empire into real estate and hospitality, but it was all propped up by high levels of debt and little true innovation. Bianca and Adrian Whitaker, now married, had risen to senior positions. Adrian as president, Bianca as head of marketing. Ronan's digital surveillance uncovered growing signs of strain. Mercier Holdings had over-leveraged itself, particularly in high-end properties located in unstable markets. Their retail chain was rapidly losing ground to e-commerce, and their half-baked online expansion had floundered, hampered by poor planning and an outdated approach to digital engagement. But their most glaring weakness was the Mercier Grand Project, a high-profile luxury development intended to revitalize downtown Westridge. Though construction had begun, financial pressure had already caused delays and spiraling costs. Ronan's plan had finally begun to crystallize. Through a labyrinth of shell companies and anonymous trusts, he began acquiring the floundering debt tied to Mercier Holdings, zeroing in on the financially cursed Mercier Grand Development. Simultaneously, he snapped up nearby parcels of land through covert real estate deals, piece by piece, building an invisible stranglehold around the very empire that had once cast him out. He moved like a ghost, unseen, untouchable, and impossible to trace. By the 8th year of his self-imposed exile, Ronan had built a staggering net worth surpassing $2 billion. Keaton Innovations had transformed into a diversified powerhouse with successful ventures in cybersecurity, advanced composites, and quantum technologies, each unit generating enormous profits. Forbes included him among the most powerful figures in American tech, though his profile contained only a shadowed silhouette. Ronan refused to appear in photographs. That same year, a top-secret dossier was delivered to him. Mercier Holdings was in a desperate scramble to attract outside investors to save the Mercier Grand. Private equity firms had turned them down one after another, citing unsustainable debt levels and fractured leadership as red flags. The moment Ronan had orchestrated with painstaking precision was approaching. He launched a new investment front, Phoenix Capital, ensuring his identity as its true owner remained deeply hidden. To serve as the firm's public face, he enlisted Vanessa Prescott, a fierce and widely respected deal-maker known for her cold precision and unshakable discretion. "Your job is simple," he told her during their initial meeting. "Present Phoenix Capital as a lifeline investor. Express interest in the Mercier Grand, but withhold commitment until you've met every key executive, Leonard and Delilah Mercier included." Vanessa arched an eyebrow. "Why go after them?" she asked bluntly. "Their financials are a disaster, and this project is on life support, especially in this market." Ronan's expression remained unreadable. "The profit's my concern," he answered calmly. "Just get me into a room with the Merciers." As Phoenix Capital initiated preliminary negotiations, Ronan turned his attention to crafting the final phase of his long-laid plan. This was his one chance to bring down the dynasty that had once shattered his life. Every element had to align seamlessly. His intelligence network had already confirmed that Leonard and Delilah were slowly ceding control of day-to-day operations to their daughter Bianca and her husband Adrian, though Leonard retained his seat as chairman of the board. The young couple lived on the family estate, having renovated the eastern wing for their use while the main residence remained with the senior Mercier. They had 2 children, 9-year-old Paige and Leonard Jr., known affectionately as LJ, who was 7. Adrian, eager to carve out his own legacy, had recklessly led the Mercier Grand initiative, brushing off repeated warnings against over-leveraging. Meanwhile, Bianca had repositioned the brand, turning Mercier Holdings into a curated symbol of elite luxury. Their marketing portrayed the family as paragons of wealth and grace, their image carefully curated across media campaigns. Yet beneath that glossy image, the company was rotting from within. The Mercier Grand had gone 40% over its original budget. Their department store chain was bleeding $3 million a month. Credit agencies had downgraded them twice within a single year. When Phoenix Capital expressed interest, Mercier Holdings was at a tipping point. Their credit lines had been severed by major banks, and two top-tier investment groups had walked away after scouring the books. The Grand's construction had come to a standstill, its skeletal structures standing as monuments to the family's unchecked pride. Vanessa's first sit-down with Adrian and the CFO played out precisely as Ronan had anticipated. Adrian tried to paint their crisis as a temporary liquidity snag, not a fundamental collapse. "We're inviting you to join us in revitalizing Westridge," Adrian pitched, rolling out high-gloss concept images of the finished Mercier Grand. Once it's completed, this project will redefine the downtown skyline and generate annual returns exceeding 22%. Vanessa remained composed. "That projection seems highly optimistic," she countered, especially given macroeconomic trends and local consumer data. Adrian's confidence faltered. "We've received verbal commitments from several upscale brands for the retail anchor spots, and over 30% of the residential units have already been pre-sold." Vanessa leafed through her briefing binder. "Our data suggests those retail agreements include exit clauses tied to construction timelines and tenant mix," she said evenly. "And weren't those early sales largely to family associates? At discounted prices below market value?" Adrian's face drained of color. It was clear that Phoenix Capital had done its homework. "My client still sees opportunity here," Vanessa said, voice smooth as glass. "But he'll require a meeting with your entire executive team, including the chairman, before moving forward. We're looking at a potential injection of $150 million contingent on certain terms." Adrian stiffened. "What kind of terms?" "That will be discussed at the meeting," she replied. "My client insists on remaining anonymous until late-stage discussions. What I can share is this. He ranks among the 20 wealthiest individuals in the U.S., and he specializes in rescuing legacy firms on the brink." The trap was perfectly baited. After a tense emergency board session, Mercier Holdings agreed to host a meeting with the anonymous investor at their Westridge headquarters the following week. Leonard, unwilling to leave such a pivotal decision in Adrian's hands, personally insisted on attending. When Ronan received the final meeting confirmation, a rare hint of emotion touched his face. It had been 9 years, 7 months, and 18 days since he'd been cast out of their world with little more than $150 to his name. Now he was returning to Westridge, not as Ronan Keaton the kitchen worker, not as the discarded son-in-law, but as the unseen architect of the Mercier family's reckoning. The evening before the meeting, Ronan landed his private jet at a secluded airfield 30 miles from Westridge. He checked into the Montgomery Hotel under an alias. Once a crown jewel in the Mercier hospitality portfolio, the hotel had been sold off 5 years prior and was now just another aging property in a discount chain. Ronan noted the faded charm of its once grand decor and allowed himself a small, private smile. From the wide expanse of glass in his hotel suite, Ronan Keaton studied the silent remains of what was once Mercier's most ambitious undertaking. Steel skeletons stood frozen beneath the cold glow of motion-triggered floodlights, their shadows stretching over machinery that had long since gone dormant. A rusting chain-link perimeter boxed in the development site, where faded promotional signs still clung to poles, bearing the hollow promise, "Mercier Grand, where luxury lives again." The glossy architectural renderings had been dulled by months of exposure, their vibrant hues lost to wind, rain, and neglect. He laid a perfectly pressed charcoal suit across the arm of a nearby chair, setting a blood-red tie neatly beside it. On the nightstand, he placed a weathered gold pocket watch, his grandfather's legacy and the only personal item that had survived the storm that stripped him of everything else. Tomorrow was the end game, a decade in the making. It would be the day Leonard Mercier came face to face with the man holding the keys to either resuscitate or dismantle his crumbling kingdom. Mercier Holdings still cast its shadow over downtown Westridge, crowned atop a shimmering 12-story tower, an edifice Leonard had commissioned at the height of his corporate dominance. Inside the top-floor boardroom, glass walls offered a commanding view of the city and of the derailed project that symbolized Mercier's decline. Ronan arrived 15 minutes early, accompanied by Vanessa and two trusted advisors, each carrying leather portfolios filled with precise reports and airtight legal strategies. The front desk attendant, unaware of Ronan's former ties to the family, politely directed them to wait in the executive lounge. Framed photographs lined the room, frozen moments of Mercier family glory, Bianca and Adrian at grand openings, at black-tie fundraisers, at photo ops with mayors and moguls. As they waited, Vanessa leaned in close, her voice edged with tension. Ronan gave no reply. His eyes were fixed on a particular photo. The image, taken just a year ago, featured Leonard and Delilah standing proudly behind their adult children, Bianca and Adrian, along with two grinning grandchildren, a carefully orchestrated portrait meant to inspire investor confidence, strength, succession, and family unity. It was strategic, like everything Leonard allowed to be seen. At precisely 10 hours a.m., an assistant entered and motioned for them to follow. "Mr. Mercier regrets he couldn't greet you himself," she said smoothly. "The board is ready and waiting." The conference doors swung open, revealing the entire Mercier family arrayed along one side of an immaculate mahogany table. Leonard sat at the center, Delilah and legal counsel to his right, Bianca and Adrian to his left. The CFO and two senior officers completed the lineup. Rising to his feet, Leonard offered a warm smile, but only to Vanessa, as he extended his hand. "Miss Prescott, thank you for joining us. We're looking forward to discussing a potential collaboration between Mercier Holdings and Phoenix Capital." Vanessa returned the handshake with professional grace. "Thank you, Mr. Mercier. Before we begin, I'd like to introduce my employer, founder and CEO of Keaton Innovations, and lead financier behind Phoenix Capital." She stepped aside, revealing Ronan standing just behind her. A heavy silence fell. For 3 long seconds, not a single word was spoken. Leonard stared at the man who had once been part of his family. Recognition came in waves, first surprise, then confusion, and finally a creeping, visceral dread. "Ronan," he said, disbelieving, "what is this?" Bianca's gasp shattered the silence, her hand flying to her lips. Adrian's eyes narrowed, already sizing up the situation like a threat. "Good morning, Leonard," Ronan said evenly. He set his briefcase down on the table with quiet precision. "Been almost 10 years, hasn't it?" He gestured calmly toward the table. "Let's all stay seated. We have some serious matters to get through." "This is a joke," Adrian snapped, shoving his chair back. "If this is some kind of ambush," Vanessa's voice sliced through the tension. "Let's be clear. Mr. Keaton is the principal backer of Phoenix Capital. He controls liquidity exceeding $3 billion, earmarked for select ventures." Leonard's brow furrowed as the name finally clicked. "Keaton?" he repeated incredulously. "And you expect us to believe you?" He waved vaguely toward Ronan, visibly struggling to connect the man before him with the one he had once cast aside. "Are a billionaire?" Ronan's expression sharpened to a blade's edge. "Not just a billionaire, Leonard. The one who's quietly acquired $87 million of your outstanding debt through shell acquisitions. The one who owns the parcels bordering your stalled Mercier Grand site. and the one who now holds preemptive rights on the construction loans your lenders are about to pull. Leonard blanched. His attorney leaned in, whispering furiously. The CFO tore into a folder, flipping through pages, searching for verification. Delilah found her voice first, soft and shaking. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. "If this is about Bianca—" "This has nothing to do with Bianca," Ronan replied coldly. "This is business. Your company needs a $150 million injection to stay alive through the next fiscal quarter. I'm here to determine whether you're worth that kind of risk." "You expect us to believe you've got that kind of capital?" Adrian shot back, but his voice cracked, betraying doubt. Ronan nodded toward one of his advisors. The man opened a laptop and turned it to face the Mercier family. Displayed, a Bloomberg terminal showing Keaton Innovations valued at $42 billion in market capitalization. "Maybe you've been too focused on legacy retail to keep up," Ronan said coolly. "We're the ones behind the AI infrastructure that's now powering your competitors' supply chains, the same competitors who've been eating away at your profits for years." Leonard's shock began to crystallize into something sharper. Calculation. Always the strategist, he was already adjusting his play. "You've done well for yourself," he said at last. "Impressive. But why come here? Why us?" Ronan offered a faint nod. "A reasonable question," he said, "and one I'll answer, after my team completes its full due diligence." He turned to Vanessa. "Miss Prescott, please walk them through our findings and preliminary offer." For the next hour, Vanessa methodically dismantled Mercier Holdings' balance sheets, pointing to a cascade of executive missteps that had left the company bleeding. Beyond the $150 million required to jumpstart Mercier Grand, Ronan's team projected an additional $70 million needed to stabilize debt obligations and revive their floundering retail operations. While the family exchanged tense words, Ronan observed in silence, taking stock of every subtle dynamic. Leonard grew more defensive by the minute, interrupting with justifications and half-hearted rationalizations for each misstep. Delilah sat composed, elegance intact, though her rigid grip on the chair arm exposed her inner tension. Bianca alternated between meeting Ronan's gaze and deliberately avoiding it. Adrian, no longer openly hostile, had adopted a calculating watchfulness, sizing Ronan up. When Vanessa finally concluded her presentation, the quiet in the room grew suffocating, until Ronan broke it. "I'm sure you're all wondering why I'd even entertain helping the very people who once decided I had no value," he said, fixing his eyes on Leonard. "But I'm not here to rescue Mercier Holdings. I'm here to claim it, strip it down, rebuild it on my terms, and use it to serve my own interests." "That will never happen," Leonard replied sharply, his voice firm. "This business has been in your family for 3 generations," Ronan said, unfazed. "And under your direction, it's circling the drain. You've got 2 choices. Take my deal or watch the company file for bankruptcy before the end of the quarter. My terms won't change, but at least they preserve your family name in some limited fashion." He pushed a folder across the table. It contained a preliminary offer. "Phoenix Capital is ready to inject $220 million in exchange for 71% ownership of the newly structured entity. Leonard and Delilah will retire with modest pensions. Bianca and Adrian may retain ceremonial roles in the retail division, but only based on performance and subject to oversight by a CEO appointed by Phoenix." "This is blackmail," Adrian snapped. "We'll find capital somewhere else." "You're welcome to try," Ronan said evenly. "But I already hold controlling stakes in your outstanding debt. If you push this to bankruptcy court, Phoenix will acquire the company at a fraction of what I'm offering now." The shift in Leonard's demeanor was palpable. His arrogance began to fade, giving way to a grudging recognition and the first signs of fear. "You've been planning this," Leonard said, his voice lower. 9 years, 7 months, and 19 days. Ronan answered, his tone devoid of emotion. Ever since you cast me out with $150 and a handshake, you thought that would be the end of me, but you left me just enough to rebuild. So this is payback, Delilah said, her voice steady. No, Delilah, Ronan replied. This is profit on a long-term investment. He stood. You have 48 hours to accept the terms. After that, we proceed with the bankruptcy filing. Vanessa will stay in Westridge to coordinate with your legal team. As he began to gather his things, Bianca's voice cut through the silence. Ronan, please, don't punish the kids for what we did. He stopped and turned toward her. Interesting how you care about consequences now, Bianca, he said. You've got 48 hours to decide what those consequences will be. And with that, he walked out, leaving the Mercier family in stunned silence, forced to reckon with a reality they never thought possible. The man they cast aside now held the power to dismantle everything they built. The following morning, Ronan received a call from Leonard requesting a private meeting at the Montgomery Hotel. Vanessa urged him not to go, but Ronan agreed, on the condition that they meet in the restaurant, not Leonard's suite. Leonard arrived precisely on time, but the toll of the past 24 hours was written all over him. He looked worn, like a man who had aged a decade overnight. His usually sharp appearance had dulled, his tie askew, his shoes scuffed. I appreciate you coming, Leonard said after ordering a black coffee. I felt it was important to speak, just the two of us. We're well past private conversations, Leonard, Ronan responded coolly. But I'm curious. What exactly do you think you'll accomplish here? Leaning in, Leonard let his mask slip. I want the truth. What do you really want? No one builds something this elaborate for just a business deal, not unless it's personal. It was personal the day you took everything from me, Ronan said evenly. But it became business the moment I realized just how thoroughly you were ruining Mercier Holdings. There's still value here, but not under your leadership. So it is revenge, then, Leonard muttered. I call it justice, Ronan corrected him. With a strong return. Leonard held his gaze, the weight of Ronan's words sinking in. What you're proposing would wipe out everything my family built. 3 generations, gone. Not gone, Ronan replied. The first 2 generations built something worthwhile. Your generation let it rot. Your father would be sickened by what you've done, the reckless debt, the failed expansions, your refusal to evolve. You're clinging to the past, Leonard. Meanwhile, the world moved on. The hit landed. Leonard's father, Montgomery Mercier, had been a visionary, a disciplined builder who grew a regional store into a respected brand. Leonard had always struggled to live up to that legacy. What if we offered a compromise? Leonard said cautiously. Delilah and I stepped down, completely. Bianca and Adrian relinquished their positions too. You'd still get control, but at 55%, not 71%. Ronan's smile was faint, but biting. You still think you have bargaining power? You don't. But tell me, where's Adrian? I thought he'd be here, fighting for every scrap of influence. Leonard's jaw tightened. The silence between them said everything. Adrian had been flirting with a ruthless investment firm based in New York. Typical behavior. He'd always put himself first. And Bianca? Leonard hesitated. She was, naturally, shattered. This will erase whatever's left for her kids, he said gravely. Their inheritance was already stripped away long before I returned, Ronan replied, his voice calm. Courtesy of your mismanagement and Adrian's reckless ventures. They weren't involved in any of that, Leonard shot back. They're innocent in all this. You can't possibly intend to make them pay for our mistakes. Ronan leaned back slightly, studying the man who had once held complete dominion over his world. You still don't get it, do you? This isn't revenge. I'm acquiring distressed assets, streamlining operations and ensuring a return. That those assets belong to the people who betrayed me, that's incidental, just a side benefit. I don't believe you, Leonard said, his tone devoid of emotion. No one goes this far unless they've got something personal to settle. Ronan stood up, brushing off the remark. You can think whatever you like, but the offer stands as is. 71% ownership, full executive turnover, and your immediate resignation. You have until tomorrow morning to accept. If not, we initiate bankruptcy proceedings first thing Monday. As Ronan left the room, there was no surge of triumph, none of the vindication he'd long anticipated. Leonard now appeared diminished, a mere shadow of the powerful figure who had once dismissed him without a second thought. The moment lacked the weight he'd imagined. Back in his hotel suite, Ronan discovered a message from Bianca requesting a one-on-one meeting. He declined with a brief text, directing her to submit any communications through official channels. Less than an hour later, Vanessa called with a development. Adrian had made direct contact, offering his support for Ronan's takeover in exchange for a secure position in the new organization and a private arrangement for himself. He's willing to throw his own family under the bus to save himself, Vanessa said. Exactly what I expected, Ronan answered. Acknowledge the offer, but remind him. Everything goes through formal channels. No side deals. By nightfall, the once mighty Mercier legacy was splintering, just as Ronan had anticipated. Leonard and Delilah were scrambling behind closed doors, desperate for an exit that preserved some shred of dignity. Adrian was maneuvering for self-preservation, and Bianca stood helpless in the wreckage of the world she had always believed was unshakable. At 9 p.m., Ronan received one final call, this one from Delilah. You've won, she said, her voice blunt the moment he answered. Leonard will sign in the morning. But I want you to look us in the eye when you take everything, just like we did to you. That can be arranged, Ronan replied. My attorneys will deliver the documents to your office at 10. There was a pause, and when Delilah spoke again, her voice had softened. Was it worth it, Ronan? All those years chasing this ending? For once, Ronan didn't hide behind the armor of indifference. His reply carried genuine weight. When you and Leonard drained my savings and told me I was nothing, you didn't just steal money. You stripped away my dignity, my belief in people, my sense of worth. So yes, Delilah. Holding the power now to dismantle everything you built? That made every one of those 10 years count. He ended the call and stepped toward the window, looking out at the Mercier Grand project, soon to bear his signature as its new architect. The buildings that once carried the Mercier name would be leveled and replaced by something entirely his own. Tomorrow would mark the final move in a strategy a decade in the making, and still, the satisfaction he'd long imagined was absent. There was no thrill, no elation, only a cold clarity, a quiet awareness that even flawlessly executed revenge couldn't heal the deeper wounds that had fueled it. The signing occurred in the same boardroom where Ronan had revealed his identity just 2 days earlier. The Mercier entered in silence, each arriving separately. Leonard and Delilah came first, their faces lined with defeat. Bianca followed, eyes red but composed. Adrian was last, escorted by his personal lawyer, clearly more concerned with self-preservation than familial loyalty. Ronan's legal team had finalized the agreements, though the terms had shifted slightly since the initial offer. As Leonard reviewed the revised documents, his scowl deepened. These conditions are worse, he said coldly. Retention packages are gone. Our pensions slashed by 1/3. Market conditions changed, Ronan replied smoothly. Our audit revealed undisclosed liabilities. We had to make adjustments. This is a sham, Adrian barked. You're twisting the deal because you know we have no other play. That's exactly right, Ronan said coolly. You're out of plays. He nodded to his attorney. Please explain the implications to Mr. Whitaker. The lawyer methodically outlined how filing for bankruptcy would trigger even harsher outcomes, including potential personal liability for Leonard and Adrian due to a trail of questionable financial decisions made in recent years. "You really dug deep," Leonard said quietly, a mix of bitterness and begrudging respect in his voice. "You left no stone unturned, did you?" "I learned from the best," Ronan said evenly. "You were the one who showed me that in high-stakes business, feelings are just distractions. Sentiment weakens your position when the numbers get this big." Bianca, who had remained silent until now, finally spoke up. "And what about the people who work here? There are over 300 employees counting on Mercier Holdings for their livelihoods." Ronan gave a slight nod. "A fair concern. Each store will be assessed on its own performance. Profitable branches will stay open, along with their teams. Any location running at a loss will be closed, and impacted employees will be given standard severance packages. At headquarters, we're initiating a restructuring, but key talent will be retained." Delilah leaned forward slightly. "And what does that mean for us?" she asked, gesturing toward the rest of the family. "That depends on what role each of you is willing to play in the company's future," Ronan said. "Leonard, under the terms of the agreement, your retirement stands. That's non-negotiable. You'll receive a generous pension, $12,000 annually, with full medical benefits." Leonard's eyes narrowed. "And Bianca?" Ronan looked directly at Bianca. "She'll remain in a junior marketing role reporting to the incoming CMO. Her salary will be based on her contributions, not her last name." Adrian leaned forward, his tone biting. "And me?" "You're not part of the new leadership," Ronan said without inflection. "Section 12 outlines your exit. You'll get 6 months of pay as severance. That's it." Adrian's face flushed. "This is personal. You're doing this because of Bianca." Ronan didn't flinch. "No, I'm doing this because you're not qualified. You were the brains behind the Mercier Grand project, your concept, your execution. And it was a disaster. It hemorrhaged money and dragged the company down. Your performance has been a liability. You arrogant—" "Enough," Leonard interjected sharply. "We can't waste time fighting. These are the terms. Let's sign." One by one, the family signed the papers, their silence heavy with finality. With every signature, they handed over their legacy to the man they had once dismissed. When Leonard scrawled his name on the last page, he looked up at Ronan. His voice was quiet, fatigued, but not without a trace of reluctant respect. "I hope this brings you peace." Ronan met his gaze. "This isn't about peace," he said. "It's about what I've earned." He gathered the completed documents and stood. "The transition team will contact each of you soon. I recommend packing up your offices today." As the family filed out of the room, Bianca hesitated, then approached him. "Can we talk alone?" she asked, her voice low. Ronan paused, then gave a short nod. 5 minutes, in Leonard's office. Once the door closed behind them, Bianca struggled for words. "I know you're angry with me." "I'm not angry," Ronan interrupted. "Anger implies I still care. I don't." The blow landed harder than she expected, and she took a step back. "Our kids," she began, her voice cracking. "This is going to wreck their world. Their father, their grandparents, everything they know is being pulled apart." "Children adapt," Ronan said softly. "More than we give them credit for. They'll adjust, just like I did, when I had to start over with $150 and a single suitcase." "So this is your payback?" she asked, eyes glossy. "We took everything from you, and now you're doing the same?" "Not quite," Ronan replied calmly. "You'll still have more than most people could dream of. Your parents' pension alone is more than many families earn in a year. You'll still have your home, your health, your children. I'm only taking the company, Bianca, not your life." "It feels the same," she murmured. "No," Ronan said, more firmly now. When you and your family cut me loose, it was calculated. It was cold. You looked me in the eye and dismissed me like I didn't matter. You thought I'd vanish. What I'm doing now is by the book. It's legal, clinical, and justified. That difference matters. Bianca brushed a tear from her cheek. Do you ever think about how things might have been? If I'd made another choice? If we hadn't fallen apart? Ronan studied her. The woman before him was a stranger in so many ways. Time had carved new people from who they once were. No, he said at last. That chapter closed a long time ago. I'm sorry, she whispered. For whatever that's worth. Not much, Ronan said. But I heard you. He checked his watch. Time's up. The transition team would follow up regarding a potential placement in the marketing division, assuming she chose to accept the offer. With that, he turned away, leaving her standing in what had once been Leonard Mercier's office, soon to carry his own nameplate, and walked back to the boardroom, where his executive team was waiting. The acquisition was complete. Mercier Holdings was now under the control of Phoenix Capital, with Ronan Keaton at the helm as majority shareholder. And with that, the transformation commenced. Every visible mark of the Mercier legacy was erased from internal documents and corporate signage, replaced by the bold, unyielding branding of Phoenix Retail Group. The long-stalled Mercier Grand project was demolished, making room for a sleek, next-generation technology hub that promised to deliver over 1,000 well-paying jobs to Westridge. Leonard and Delilah, their reputations irreparably tarnished, quietly retreated to their coastal home in Florida. True to form, Adrian abandoned Bianca and their children once his financial security collapsed, finalizing their divorce and moving to Chicago to join a former colleague's venture. Bianca initially accepted the marketing position Ronan had offered her, but within 3 months she stepped down, unable to stomach her diminished presence in a company she once envisioned as her inheritance. She sold the Mercier estate, still privately held and not subject to corporate claims, and relocated to Boston with her children to be near her sister. Half a year after the takeover, Ronan stood alone in his new office, the one that used to belong to Leonard, staring out across the skyline of a city that had once cast him aside in disgrace. Under his leadership, Phoenix Retail Group hadn't just stabilized. It had surged forward, revitalizing stores, expanding its digital footprint, and tightening operations across the board. The tech campus, now rising where Mercier Grand once stood, was drawing attention from top-tier tech firms, slowly transforming Westridge into a promising hub for innovation. His thoughts were cut short by a knock on the door. "Miss Prescott is here to see you, Mr. Keaton." Vanessa stepped in, a file in hand detailing their latest acquisition target. "The quarterly results look solid," she said. "The board is impressed with the pace of the turnaround." "They should be," Ronan replied without pause. "We've accomplished in 6 months what the Merciers failed to do in 5 years. She paused, then added, "Speaking of the Mercier, Bianca reached out through a third party. She's going by Bianca Mercier again. Seems like she might want to reconnect." Ronan's face remained unreadable. "There's nothing left to reconnect. That book is closed." "And Leonard? Any word from him?" "Not a single one," he said, his tone firm. "And I don't anticipate we ever will." "Still too proud to admit defeat." Vanessa studied him for a long moment. Was it worth it? The years of preparation, the resources poured into it, the single-minded pursuit of this one outcome? Ronan didn't respond right away. He weighed the question in silence. His vengeance had been absolute. The family that once shattered his life now existed in the ruins of their own downfall. And yet the victorious feeling he once imagined didn't burn as brightly as he had expected. "It was necessary," he said finally. "Not for the reasons I once told myself, but because it had to be done. In doing so, I built something real, something with weight, with purpose, beyond petty revenge." Vanessa nodded slowly. "So what comes next?" Ronan turned from the glass, his gaze steady. Now, we keep building. Phoenix was eyeing expansions across 3 states. Keaton Innovations was preparing to roll out 2 major projects in the next quarter. The past had been settled. The future demanded their full attention. As Vanessa began outlining their next steps, Ronan felt the final echoes of his old life fade away. The man who had once left Westridge with nothing but spare change and a suitcase had ceased to exist. In his place stood Ronan Keaton, architect of his destiny, builder of an empire, answering to no one. What had started as retribution had evolved into something far greater, not just the dismantling of those who wronged him, but the creation of something so vast they could never have imagined it. From the wreckage, he had built everything, and that, in the end, was the most enduring triumph of all. Our story comes to an end here. Share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for taking the time to watch. If you enjoyed this story, please check out other videos on this channel. See you soon, my dear friend.